So of course, the first question is, what is the composition API? In Vue 2, one of the challenges that developers faced as apps grew and scaled was a desire to share and reuse code in a way that was more flexible than the options API. And while there are techniques like mixins, provide inject, and such to help with this, it came with drawbacks that were less than ideal. But at the end of the day, at its core, the composition API is another way to build Vue apps and organize your code. But before we can talk more about it, let's do a quick review of what the Options API is. Here, we have a counter app, which should be familiar to most of us who've been writing Vue for some time. And in case you didn't know, it's written in what is called the Options API. The reason it's called the Options API is because it provides predefined options for us to use. So we have things like our data property, computed property, and methods to contain the individual sections. If we were to rewrite this using the new Composition API, here's what it would look like. As you can see, it looks like there's a lot more going on. But don't worry, by the end of this mission, you know exactly how all of this works. Now, before we move on, there's one thing I need you to understand, and that is the Composition API does not replace the Options API. And while there are a lot of benefits to the Composition API, there are some trade-offs that I want you to understand. As we saw in the example before, the Composition API can be more verbose and has less structure in comparison with the Options API. It also requires more JavaScript knowledge in order to use it. In addition, you also need a deeper understanding of how Vue works in order to use it. And since there's less structure, this means that architectural decisions are up to you, which can be a double-edged sword. So let's see it in action. Here, we have a simple component using the Composition API. The biggest indicator to let you know that the Composition API is being used is this setup keyword. Setup has two optional arguments that it is passed, which are props and context. In some code bases, you'll also see context abbreviated to CTX. And inside of the context argument, you get access to three properties: attributes, slots, and emit. So just know that this is here for you when you need it. So setup has two major parts. The first part is going to contain all of the standard JavaScript that you would write to set up your code. So in this case, all we're doing is declaring a constant of count with a value of 0. The second part is the code that you want to expose to the component, which is accomplished by returning an object with the relevant properties. However, the problem with the code we have here is that while it works, the data is static. In other words, it is not reactive and none of the dependencies will update if we try to change it. With that said, let's start diving into some code. See you in the next video.